Okay, so we started the story a couple weeks ago. We have Robert, who is the protagonist. He's 12 years old. This is his family. The main thing is he helped the cow, Apron, give birth. And she actually had 2 little calves, which is why she was having trouble in birth, right? And because of it, Mr. Tanner gave him a gift. What did he give him? A pig. That's right. What's the pig's name?
Pinky.
All right. Thank you, Tyson.
What did I miss?
Well, you missed a lot. You should have looked on canvas, Kai. All right. Pay attention. We're going to teach you a lesson.
Okay.
All right. So the last chapter we read, I'll be real with you, not much happened in it. That was chapter 4. All they did was get Pinky a little house to live in. Y'all recall that? They set it up for Pinky and all that stuff. Okay, so today is chapter 5. Now look, I've told y'all before that good authors do 2 things. First thing they do is they write about what they know. All right? I've never been to Los Angeles. Never been there. Therefore, I could not write a story that takes place in Los Angeles. I'm not familiar with it. All right? I'm not familiar with the people who live there. I don't really know much about it. I've been to other places. You know? I've been to Pensacola. But even though I've been there, I haven't been there enough to be able to identify and write a story that would take place there with the people there. All right? But if they wanted a story written from the perspective of a middle school teacher, I'm your guy. All right? I've taught middle school 22 years, and I attended middle school for 3 years, so I know that. If I told you guys to write a short story about an event that happened in middle school, just a page or 2, y'all could do well at it. Y'all are familiar with middle school. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to write things that you know. That's what good authors do. Well, this guy actually grew up on a farm. This story is mostly true. So our author is very good about that, about writing what he knows. The second thing I've told y'all, and I've said this 2 or 3 times. I know we haven't been in school a week, but till we left, I've told y'all this 2 or 3 times. What's the other thing that a good author does? It helps people identify with what he's writing. What is it? Foreshadowing. Who said that? That's the wrong answer. All the wrong answers. So. I got him, didn't I, Savannah?
I got me too.
Hung thought he had one right. No, you ain't got one right, Hung. You ain't getting one right.
I didn't even say anything.
Doesn't matter. You were thinking it. It was wrong. Now listen up. This is what a good author does. The next time I answer this, you better know it. Hold on. You smell that? It's a quiz question. You better pay attention. Like that? A good author writes things that everyone can identify with, even if they've never been in that specific situation. All right? So, check out the way this chapter starts. Here we go. Now, we're going to stop after like a paragraph and discuss this. You pay attention. The next day was Sunday. Of course, the 4 of us went to Shaker meeting. Me and Mama and Papa and Aunt Carrie. We went in the wagon and Solomon pulled it. All the way to learning and all the way home. It was a real good sunny Sunday. Perfect all around. And the best part was, I sat in meeting where I could see Becky Tate. She couldn't see me. And we're going to stop right there. That's the good thing that this author does. At your age, you guys have all had a crush on somebody by now. Okay? Now, you've all had a crush on somebody. You've all been afraid to really admit it to anybody because you didn't want to be rejected, right? But you know when you go to class with that person or church with that person or Sunday school or whatever, you know you look at them, right? You know you've all done that by now. That's what this author does well. He writes where his readers can identify and be sympathetic to his characters. Now let us continue. That afternoon, Pinky and I went for a walk up on the ridge that parts our land for Mr. Tanner's. We didn't go too near the spot where old Apron and I met up. I don't hanker to ever see that place right away quick, and if it's never, you won't hear a howl from me. One nice thing about April, there were little rivers about everywhere. Where the spruce cover was thick, you could see a patch of snow here or there, and the ground was still hard as winter, but only in spots. Most of the land lay open to sun, and it was soft and brown, ready to be mated with seed. Pinky rooted around in the leaves and found her very first butternut, left over from fall. She sniffed it a while with her little pink nose. Then she tried to crack it with her teeth. She couldn't do it, but it sure wasn't from lack of trying. So I put the butternut on a flat rock, smashed it with another stone, fed the meat of the butternut to Pinky. We looked around for more and found a few. Pinky seemed to take to them, because each time I'd stop to crack one, she'd almost always have her nose in the way of the rock. One of the tiny rivers was about as wide as my hand, but the current was swift. It was a perfect spot to build what I like to build every spring. Pinky, I said, you ever see a flutter wheel? Well, I'm going to make one, so you watch real close and careful. I found 2 tiny fork sticks, which I pushed into the mud, fork up, on both sides of the stream. Then, from one fork to the other, I put a basswood axle with a dab of mud in the crotch of both forks to grease its turning. All was needed then were 3 or 4 paddles that I stuck into the axle. By pushing the 2 fork sticks deeper into the mud until the water touched the paddle blades, the flutter wheel finally turned. The strong current of the tiny creek made it turn round and round. Pinky watched it for a moment or two, but she didn't find it near as comely as Butternut's. She sure was my pig. As I lay on the ground on a brown carpet of spruce needles, Pinky would wander off by herself, but never very far. No farther than you could kick a barrel with just one good kick, the barrel on its side and rolling. One time, she went a little farther from me, and a big black crow over her head in a hickory tree let out a bark that made her jump and squeal like she'd been stuck. She come running to me like the fallen angel was after her. She never stopped squealing till she was in my arms with her slobber all over me. I let her feel the warm of my shirt next to her. She was my pig. Only minutes after the crow spooked her, she was wading in the water not too far from where the flutter wheel was turning. She came close to stepping on a frog, and when it jumped, so did she. You couldn't tell which one was more scared of the other, the frog or Pinky. All the frog took was just one jump, sat there like he was waiting for her. He didn't wait long. Pinky got her gumption up in no time and went close enough to smell him. This time, when he jumped, she pulled back a bit, but she didn't spook. Not Pinky. I guess she knew he wasn't anything more than a little old hot frog. He wasn't anything to run from. She kept right on chasing him. He kept right on leaping. It was fair to see. He got so busy keeping away from Pinky that he made a big misdo. He plumb forgot about that old black crows up above just watching that game of tag. Didn't take that wise old bird long to see himself a meal. He dropped out that hickory tree like a big black stone, landed with his feet splashing water, took one sharp, clear peck of that frog, hit him dead center. By the time Pinky jumped away, I saw the last of Mr. Frog. He just disappeared with his white belly up, right in the beak and the gullet of that crow. He tasted good, you can bet. I'd ate the legs off a big fat bullfrog on many a summers, I know. Just like chicken, only you gotta skin them first. Unless you skin them, they real slimy. And you can only eat the hind legs. The front ones, you just gotta throw to the chickens. Funny thing about that, I was cleaning a mess of frogs. By the way, have y'all ever eaten frogs?
Yes, I've tried it.
I'm not a frog eating person. I've eaten a couple.
It was nice. Yeah, my dad tastes like chicken.
Well, I was cleaning a mess of frogs one time with Papa. I said, Papa, ain't it a caution you can only eat 2 legs off a frog instead of 4? He said, Rob, here's what you do. You catch a real big bullfrog, make friends with him, teach him to jump backwards. That'll make his front legs big as a hind. You know, I actually tried it. I went to the sump the next day, caught me a bullfrog, and spent the better part of a morning trying to learn that old frog jump backwards. See, he'd build up his front legs. But you think he'd do it? Not even once. Papa wasn't one to smile every year, but he sure did then. Before I knew it, there I was, telling that frog story to Pinky. I don't know whether she found it as mirthful as Papa, but she seemed to enjoy it some. Pink, I said, how about it? You want a frog for supper? She just looked at me with her funny little eyes, which could have meant yes. So we left the flutter wheel turning, come down off the ridge, headed for the sump. It was the same swell hole that I latched the frog that I never learned to jump backwards. Maybe there'd be more, and I could give Pinky a taste of frog legs. We got to the sump okay, started to turn over a few rocks looking for frogs, but there just didn't seem to be any around. Or any. Pinky watched me wading around, looking among the rocks and marsh grass, so she thought she'd try her luck. Poking her little pink snout down between 2 stones at water's edge, She found something on the very first try. It was somebody who could jump backwards all right, but it weren't no frog. She squealed, because clinging to her nose was one powerful looking crawdad. In school, Miss Malcolm calls him a crayfish, but if one ever gets a hold of your toe, it sure feels more like a crawdad. And that old crawdad on Pinky's nose was really giving her what for. I pulled it off, threw it back in the pond. She kept squealing. I reckon it gave her snout a good pinch. High on the ridge, Pinky and I could look down and see Mr. Tanner's farm. It sure looked prosperous next to ours. The barn was long and white painted. There were white fences all along the lanes. On the near side of the big white house was a small meadow. That was where we could see Apron and her 2 bull calves. Just to look at that big Holstein made my arm hurt. The stitches were still in it. Yes, they'd be there till hell froze and got hauled to the ice house. If Mama had any plan to remove her son, she sure hadn't told her unto me. I didn't bring it up and wasn't going to, just in case those stitches hurt half as much coming out as they did going in. I couldn't say for sure just how you took thread out of somebody's arm, but it would probably mean some cutting, and I wasn't about to step forward for another dose of that. It was good to look down from the high and lonely, see Bob and Bib tagging along after Apron. Bob was the one named after me. My real name was Robert Peck. Lots of times I got called Bob. That's what Jacob Henry called me. I was named after Robert Rogers, who was quite a man with the Indians in these parts. He's dead now. There was a time when there wasn't an Iroquois in Vermont or in New York State that didn't hear the name of Major Robert Rogers and start to fear it. Some said he was a Shaker, born and bred, just like Popeye, just like me. But he didn't wear Shaker clothes. He wore Indian clothes most of the time, Robert Rogers did. He wore buckskin shirts, trousers, and no stockings, people said. Major Robert Rogers was a very famous man. So famous, if you rode Cross Lake to Ticonderoga, there's a big rock slide named after him. Indians were chasing him along the shoulder that's west of Lake George, and Robert Rogers slid down that slide to escape. That's how he got away. That's why he's so famous, according to Miss Malcolm. Piggy, I said, do you know I was named after Major Robert Rogers, and that he was a Shaker just like me, just like you? Be it if Pinky was at all bright in knowing that, she sure hit it good. She just kept rooting around the ferns and not finding a thing. So I just kept saying to her about Robert Rogers. That's how he got away, Pinky. Of course, from everything I've heard and read in history books, Robert Rogers didn't have to run for the Indians at all. He could have turned and fought them off one by one and killed every last one of them. He could have pushed them all right down that rock. Rogers Rock, it's called. When my grandfather was still alive, I told him about Robert Rogers and all. And I said how much Major Robert Rogers hated Indians. And that's when Grandpa said he didn't hate them all. Because a number of Indian women in these parts had children who looked like they'd been desired by Robert Rogers. They all favored him some. Anyhow, he sure seemed to be a regular guy. So I was really proud to carry his name. Come on, Pinky, I said. It's getting close to chore time. I got to feed you and Daisy and Solomon. And if I'm not home come chore time, hell won't have it. Papa gets mighty stirred up over that. Right he should. Chores are my mission, not his. I ran down off the ridge toward our farm as fast as I could just to see if my pig could keep up with me. She could. I ran all the way across the north meadow, clear to the creek. And even there I didn't stop. I just jumped it, sailed through the air, and landed yonder. Pinky didn't jump from one bank to another, but she sure waded it fast as fury. Splashed right through, made all the silver jump up around her hoofs. Come quick, said Mama, who was standing at the barn door. Just inside was a nest in the hay, right next to the warm wall near Daisy. Down in the hay was our barn cat, Miss Sarah. 3 of the prettiest kittens you'll see anywhere. One was calico like her. Another was a tiger buff, and it was easy the biggest. The third was almost all white, with buff-colored markings on its back and rear leg. They was a trio to behold. Miss Sarah was real happy about it too. She lay there purring and purring and purring, like her motor was running. She wouldn't stop. And those 3 kittens there, wet milky noses all buried into her belly, all sucking away to beat mercy. Look, Pinky, I said, lifting her up so she could see Miss Sarah and her litter. No matter how many times a barn cat has her kits, Mama said, it's always a wondrous thing to see. Okay, so today, keep it taping, okay? Today, I'll admit, it wasn't the most exciting. Keep in mind, he's having to make a relationship with this pig, right? So it's kind of like that. It's kind of like when you guys get a new little pet, you kind of, you know what I mean? Make a little relationship with it, teach it how to walk on the leash or whatever you do. Tomorrow's chapter is hysterical. You do not want to miss. It is so funny. He gets his report card. Okay? It's really good. You'll like it. So be here. Questions, comments, or expostulations? None? All right. Thank you very much.